The dry wind of Copper Ridge carried dust and whispers as Samuel Whitaker froze mid-step. There, sprawled on layers of flattened boxes in the middle of the dirt road, lay a man, not nailed to timber like the crucified, but displayed as if offering himself to the sky. A crude sign rested on his chest. "You walked past me yesterday." The sight struck Samuel like a fist to the stomach. This wasn't some drunken vagrant or a deranged street performer. This was intentional, methodical. The man's weathered face was tilted upward, eyes closed, chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. His tattered clothes barely concealed the fragments of what used to be a soldier's uniform, now stained with dirt and time. Samuel's hands trembled as he edged closer. It had been 3 months since Elizabeth died. 3 months of lonely walks through these same streets every morning. And this man had seen him pass, again and again, blind to everything but his own grief. The weight of guilt crashed over Samuel like a wave. How often had he ignored the suffering around him while drowning in his own sorrow? Suddenly, the man's eyes snapped open, piercing, sharp, the bluest Samuel had ever seen. They locked onto his with unsettling precision, slicing through the fragile armor Samuel wore each day. No words were needed. In that instant, pain recognized pain. "You're him," the man rasped, voice rough but steady. "The one who lost his wife to the fever. I heard the church bells toll for her." Samuel's throat tightened. How could this stranger know? How long had he been watching? With slow, deliberate movements, the man sat upright, never breaking eye contact. There was a strange mixture of calm and menace about him that made Samuel's skin prickle. "The name's Tobias Crane," he said, standing with surprising steadiness. "Former cavalry. Been watching this town for weeks. Watching you." He lifted a hand, one missing the tip of its index finger, and pointed directly at Samuel. "You carry the heaviest burden of them all." Samuel wanted to retreat, to walk away, but something in Tobias's gaze rooted him to the spot. This wasn't just some broken veteran begging for scraps. This was something far more dangerous. "Why the display?" Samuel managed to ask, gesturing at the makeshift cross. Tobias gave a humorless smile. "Because I died 3 years ago in that godforsaken war. Same way your Elizabeth died 3 months ago, except I'm still breathing. Question is, are you?" Before Samuel could respond, Tobias reached into his worn jacket and withdrew a folded, yellowed piece of paper. He extended it towards Samuel, but yanked it back just as his fingers brushed it. "This," Tobias whispered, "holds something that will turn everything you believe about your precious Elizabeth upside down." Samuel's pulse thundered in his ears. What could this broken man know? Elizabeth had been his wife for 15 years. They'd built a life together, through poverty, through storms, through the fever that eventually took her. She had never kept secrets. Never. "You're lying," Samuel said, though doubt crept into his voice. Tobias let out a bitter laugh that echoed against the empty storefronts. "Everyone carries secrets, friend. The dead just aren't around to defend theirs anymore. And the secret? This one will gnaw at you until there's nothing left." He tucked the paper back into his jacket and began walking down the street, his bare feet silent on the dusty road. Against all logic, Samuel followed, compelled by a force he didn't fully understand. "Where are we going?" Samuel asked, struggling to keep pace. "To the place where your wife met her lover," Tobias answered coldly. The word struck like a hammer to Samuel's chest. He stumbled, his vision blurring. "No, she was faithful. She loved me." Tobias turned, his blue eyes scanning Samuel with unsettling calm. "She did love you. That's what made it so painful. But love and loyalty aren't the same." He pointed toward the abandoned church on the town's outskirts, its bell tower silhouetted against the morning sun. "Every Tuesday, for 2 years, she told you she was visiting her sister in Millfield. Instead, she met him there." Samuel's knees threatened to buckle. Elizabeth had visited her sister religiously, returning each time with little gifts and cheerful stories. Could it all have been a lie? "You're sick," Samuel whispered, "making up stories about a dead woman." "Am I?" Tobias reached into his pocket and pulled out a broken silver locket. Samuel's breath caught. It was unmistakable. He'd given it to Elizabeth on their 5th anniversary. She'd worn it until the day she died. Found it buried behind a church 3 days ago, Tobias said, letting it dangle before Samuel's eyes, along with letters and other items, evidence of what they shared. Samuel lunged for the locket, but Tobias jerked it away with a cruel grin. Not yet. First, you help me. Then you get the truth. What do you want? Samuel's voice quivered. Tobias gestured toward the sheriff's office across the street. Through the window sat Sheriff Alden-Cole, reading his morning paper. Samuel's stomach twisted. Sheriff Cole had been a pillar of support after Elizabeth's passing, bringing meals, checking on him when others had moved on. That man destroyed my life, Tobias hissed. Took everything. Left me to rot. Now I need your help to get close enough to settle the score. Samuel stared at the sheriff, his mind in turmoil. Betraying him felt like betraying the very man who'd carried him through his grief. Yet the locket in Tobias's hand pulled him forward like a hook in his chest. I won't, Samuel said hoarsely. Whatever happened between you and the sheriff, I won't be a part of it. Tobias's face darkened. You're sure about that? He waved the folded paper again. This letter was written by Elizabeth herself. Want to know what she said? How every time you touched her, she felt trapped. How she prayed for strength to leave, but couldn't bear to hurt you. Each word tore into Samuel's soul. You're lying, he choked. She loved me. Tobias leaned in, voice low and sharp. She pitied you, stayed out of obligation. But her heart, her body, that belonged to someone else. Someone who knew how to make her feel alive. Samuel shook his head, desperate to shut out the words. But then Tobias opened the locket. Inside was a photograph Samuel had never seen. Elizabeth, laughing wildly, her hair loose, her dress disheveled. She looked vibrant, free, nothing like the quiet woman he'd known. Took this myself, Tobias said, right after I caught them together, right after I learned the truth, that Sheriff Cole had taken the only woman I ever loved. The revelation hit Samuel like a thunderclap. Sheriff Cole, the man who'd held him at the funeral, who'd wiped his tears, had been sleeping with his wife all along. That's why you need me, Samuel whispered. Tobias's grin returned, colder than before. By sundown his peace ends. And yours? Yours has only just begun. The morning sun cast long, sharp shadows as Daniel Harper stood frozen in the middle of the dusty road. A man lay ahead, not on a wooden cross like the Savior, but spread out on layers of worn cardboard, his arms stretched wide, as if crucified. A crude sign rested against his chest. You walked by me yesterday. The sight gripped Daniel's chest like an iron hand. This wasn't some poor drunk or crazed wanderer looking for attention. No, this was deliberate, intentional. The man's face was turned to sky, eyes closed, his breathing slow but steady. His tattered clothing barely concealed what remained of an old military uniform, frayed and stained by time. Daniel's fingers trembled as he moved closer. It had been nearly 4 months since his wife, Emily, succumbed to the fever. Every morning since, he had walked these streets lost in his grief, blind to the world around him. And this man, this stranger, had been watching him all along. Then the man's eyes shot open, piercing blue, sharp as shattered glass. Their gazes locked, and in that silent exchange, Daniel felt something pass between them. Not recognition of face, but pain. You're the one, the man rasped, his voice rough and dry. The one who lost his wife. I heard the bells toll for her. Daniel's throat tightened. How could the stranger know? How long had he been observing? With a fluid motion, the man sat up, never breaking eye contact. A strange tension clung to him, something dangerous beneath his calm exterior. Name's Victor Hale, he said, rising with surprising steadiness. Cavalry. I've been here for weeks. Watching. Learning. Watching you. Victor lifted his hand, revealing a missing fingertip as he pointed at Daniel. You carry a heavier weight than most. Daniel wanted to leave, but something in Victor's gaze held him captive. This wasn't a plea for help. This was something darker. Why stage this? Daniel managed, gesturing to the makeshift crucifixion. Victor's lips curled into a bitter smile. Because I died 3 years ago in that war. Like your Emily died 3 months ago. Difference is, I'm still breathing. Are you? Before Daniel could answer, Victor reached into his coat and pulled out a folded, yellowed letter. He extended it forward, but pulled it back just as Daniel reached for it. This contains a truth about your precious Emily. A truth you aren't ready for, Victor whispered. Daniel's pulse pounded. What could this man possibly know? Emily had been his wife for 16 years. They had shared everything, built a life from nothing, survived countless storms together. You're lying, Daniel said, but doubt gnawed at his words. Victor laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. Everyone hides something. The dead simply can't defend their secrets. And this one will destroy you. He tucked the letter back into his coat and began walking. Against all sense, Daniel followed, pulled forward by the weight of words unspoken. Where are we going? Daniel asked. To where your wife met her lover, Victor answered coldly. The word struck Daniel like a hammer. His knees weakened. No, she was loyal. Victor stopped, turning back with those icy eyes. She did love you, but loyalty is not love. She kept you for comfort, him for passion, and left me with nothing but broken memories. He pointed toward the abandoned chapel at the edge of town. Every Tuesday, for 2 years, she told you she was visiting her sister. She came here instead. Daniel's mind spun. Emily had been so consistent. The gifts from Millfield, the stories of her sister's children. It had all seemed so genuine. You're making this up, Daniel whispered. Victor reached into his coat again, producing a silver locket. Daniel's breath caught. It was unmistakable. He had gifted it to Emily on their 6th anniversary. Found is buried behind the church, Victor said, dangling it before him, along with letters and other things. Daniel lunged for the locket, but Victor yanked it back with a cruel smirk. Not yet. Help me, and I'll give you the truth. What do you want? Daniel's voice cracked. Victor nodded toward the sheriff's office across the street. Through the window, Sheriff Marcus Caldwell sat reading his paper. The same man who had offered Daniel comfort after Emily's death. He took everything from me, Victor hissed. His badge, his status, his reputation, and my Emily. Daniel's stomach twisted. Sheriff Caldwell had been his friend, his support after Emily passed. But now doubts swirled like a storm inside him. I can't be part of this, Daniel said weakly. Victor's face hardened. You sure? He waved the letter again. This is her handwriting. She wrote how guilty she felt every time you touched her, how she stayed for your sake, but dreamed of leaving. The words tore at Daniel's soul. You're lying. Victor leaned close. She pitied you, but her heart, that belonged to someone else. As Daniel fought the urge to collapse, Victor opened the locket. Inside was a photograph Daniel had never seen. Emily, laughing with abandon, her hair wild, her dress askew, nothing like the reserved wife he had known. I took this after I caught them, Victor whispered. Sheriff Caldwell stole her from both of us. The world spun. Sheriff Caldwell, the man who had held him at her funeral, had been with his wife behind his back. That's why you need my help, Daniel said softly. Victor nodded. By sundown he will pay. From beneath his coat, Victor drew a revolver, checking its chambers with practiced ease. The weight of it made Daniel's stomach churn. You can't just kill him, Daniel protested. Victor chuckled darkly. I died the day she chose him. Everything since has been borrowed time. But this won't be quick. Not yet. First, I want him to suffer. Daniel's voice trembled. What do you mean? Victor's smile turned venomous. His daughter, 16, works at the general store. Sweet girl. Would be a shame if her life were ruined. Daniel's blood turned to ice. Leave her out of this. Victor's eyes narrowed. Neither did I deserve to lose everything. Eye for an eye. He pulled a small bottle from his pocket. Clear liquid sloshing inside. 1 drop in the town well, and half this place starts dying. Daniel recoiled in horror. You're insane. I'm desperate, Victor corrected. Desperate men are dangerous because they know exactly what they're doing. He held up the locket, the sunlight glinting off its surface. "Help me make Caldwell confess, and the girl stays safe. And if I refuse?" Victor's voice turned to ice. "Then you'll watch innocent people suffer." Across the street, Sheriff Caldwell emerged from his office, stretching under the morning sun, unaware of the storm about to crash upon him. "Look at him," Victor spat. "While I've slept in filth and eaten scraps, he's lived like royalty." Daniel's hand shook. "What do you want me to do?" "Simple," Victor said. "Get him alone. Distract him. I'll take care of the rest." "And if he denies it?" Victor's hand hovered over the poison. "Then we'll see how much he values his daughter's life." With no good choices left, Daniel's legs carried him toward the sheriff's office, every step feeling like a march to his own execution. The door creaked open. Caldwell looked up, smiling. "Daniel, good to see you. How have you been holding up?" The sheriff's friendly tone cut like glass. "I need to speak with you. Privately," Daniel said, his voice barely steady. The sheriff's eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course." "Close the door." As Daniel latched the door, he saw Victor waiting outside, hand resting inside his coat. "Ready?" "What's troubling you?" Caldwell asked. Daniel hesitated, but the words came out. "I know. About Emily. About the meetings." Caldwell's face shifted. Only briefly, but enough. His hand crept toward the desk drawer where his pistol sat. "I think you should choose your words carefully," Caldwell warned. "So you're not denying it?" Caldwell let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Deny what? That she came to me? Begged me to show her what you never could? She deserved more than what you gave her." The admission shattered Daniel. "She loved me in ways you'll never understand," Caldwell sneered. "She pitied you." The door creaked. Victor entered silently, revolver drawn. The sheriff froze, recognizing him instantly. "Victor Hale," Caldwell said calmly. "I wonder when you'd come." The air grew heavy, the past between these men bleeding into the room. "Surprised to see me alive?" Victor asked, voice like broken glass. "You should have died in Andersonville," Caldwell replied, his voice tightening. Daniel's mind raced. "Andersonville, the prison camp. You left me and 40 others to rot," Victor snarled. "You escaped with intelligence, took your promotion, and came back a hero." "I had orders," Caldwell said weakly. "You saved yourself," Victor seethed. "While I crawled out of that hell, starved and broken, only to find you here, living in comfort. And then I found Emily. She had nothing to do with. She had everything to do with it." Victor roared. "She was the only one who saw me as human." Daniel stood paralyzed, realizing this was never just about his wife. This was a reckoning years in the making. The bitter taste of betrayal sat heavy on Ezekiel's tongue as Tobias stared him down. "I found her before you even returned to this town," Tobias growled, voice low and rough with years of suppressed rage. "I loved her long before you put that ring on her finger. You used her to strike at Coleman," Ezekiel managed, his stomach twisting. "I loved her," Tobias snapped, his eyes burning with a dangerous light. "But yes, hurting Coleman made it all the more satisfying. She deserved better than either of us, especially better than the coward who abandoned his men to die." Coleman sat rigid in his chair, his expression hard, even with the gun trained on him. "If you're going to kill me, then do it," he said coldly. "Stop torturing this man with your lies." "Lies!" Tobias sneered, with one hand still gripping the pistol. He reached into his coat and pulled out a crumpled official document. He tossed it at Ezekiel's feet. "Read it. See what your noble sheriff wrote after Andersonville." Ezekiel bent down, his hands trembling as he unfolded the paper. The words blurred, but a few horrific phrases stood out. Expendable assets, minimal value personnel, acceptable casualties. "You signed their death sentences," Ezekiel whispered, his voice breaking. "I made the only choice I could," Coleman responded, his calm mask slipping away. "The camp was lost. I carried out my orders. The intelligence I gathered ended the war faster and saved more lives. But you lied," Ezekiel said, his voice rising. "You told them you escaped heroically. They made you sheriff based on those lies." As Coleman's hand crept toward the drawer containing his pistol, Tobias's gun shifted with unflinching precision. "Don't," Tobias warned softly. "We're far from finished." Coleman's movement froze as Tobias continued, his voice thick with venom. "This isn't about money. This is about justice. For the soldiers you left behind. For Martha, who died believing in your honor. For him," he gestured to Ezekiel, "who buried a woman who never truly belonged to him." He drew another weapon and handed it to Ezekiel. "Your decision. Deliver justice to the man who betrayed his own and shattered your life, or let him live to keep feeding off his lies." The weight of the revolver in Ezekiel's hand was suffocating. His finger hovered near the trigger as he stared into Coleman's terrified eyes. The man who had once comforted him now sat exposed as a coward who abandoned soldiers and stole his wife. "Don't do this," Coleman pleaded, sweat forming on his brow. "Think of what you're becoming. What would Martha say if she could see you now?" Ezekiel laughed bitterly. "The Martha I knew never existed. Did she? The loyal wife. The woman who loved me through everything. It was all a lie." "She loved you," Coleman insisted weakly. "In her own way." "Don't say that word," Ezekiel barked, raising the pistol. "You don't deserve it." Tobias watched him, his gaze filled with twisted satisfaction. "That's it. Let it all out. Burn the lies away." But something inside Ezekiel shifted. The fury was still there, burning hot, but beneath it was an emptiness that no bullet could ever fill. Killing Coleman wouldn't bring Martha back. It wouldn't erase the years of deception. "I won't do it," Ezekiel whispered, lowering the gun. "I won't become a murderer." "You're weaker than I thought," Tobias snarled. "Maybe," Ezekiel said, his voice stronger now. "Or maybe I'm stronger than you. Strong enough to live with the truth rather than let it consume me." "The truth is poison," Tobias roared. "Good men die while cowards thrive. Honor means nothing. Love is a lie." Tobias spun his weapon toward Ezekiel. "If you won't do what's needed, you're as guilty as him." Coleman seized a moment, lunging for his drawer. Both guns fired at once. Coleman's shot struck well behind Tobias, while Tobias's bullet drilled into Coleman's shoulder, spinning him into the filing cabinet. "You should have aimed for the heart," Tobias hissed, advancing on the wounded sheriff. "But I want you to feel it. Bleed for your choices." Coleman groaned, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "Please, my daughter, she doesn't deserve to lose her father for mistakes I made long ago." "Mistakes." Tobias raised the gun again. "Those weren't mistakes. They were choices, selfish, evil choices that cost good men their lives." He glanced back at Ezekiel. "Help me finish this. Or watch an innocent girl lose her father because you lacked the courage." Ezekiel's hand trembled as he glanced between Tobias, Coleman, and the loaded revolver. 3 broken men. One impossible decision. The sound of footsteps approached outside. The town was closing in. "Time's up," Tobias growled, his finger tightening around the trigger. Justice or cowardice? Ezekiel had already made his choice. He turned his weapon, not on Coleman, but on Tobias. "The only justice here is stopping you from becoming what this town turned you into." Tobias's eyes flared with rage. "After all he stole from you, you defend him?" "I'm not defending him," Ezekiel said firmly. "I'm defending myself. The part of me that Martha did love, even if she loved others too." The 3 men stood locked in a deadly triangle until the door burst open. Deputy Marshal Hayes stormed in with his men, guns drawn. "Drop your weapons, all of you." Tobias let out a bitter laugh. "Perfect. Come to save the coward and the fool." "We've tracked you for months," Hayes snapped. "We know about Millfield, the poisonings, the family you murdered while hunting Coleman." Ezekiel's blood froze. Millfield, where Martha had visited her sister, where Tobias had gone searching for Coleman. "You killed Martha's sister," Ezekiel whispered, the final truth crashing down. "She wouldn't tell me where Coleman was hiding." Tobias spat. "She protected him. So I made her pay, just like I made Martha pay for choosing him." "You killed Martha." Ezekiel breathed, horror consuming him. "She didn't die from fever. You poisoned her." "I used just enough to make it look natural," Tobias admitted, his voice devoid of remorse. She died, never knowing the price of her betrayal. Blinded by rage and grief, Ezekiel moved to act, but Hayes was faster. His bullet struck Tobias in the chest, sending him stumbling backward. Finally, Tobias whispered as he crumpled to the floor, "It's done." He collapsed face first, Martha's locket slipping from his hand. Ezekiel rushed forward, opening the locket one last time. The photo inside showed Martha alone, smiling, free and happy, a happiness Ezekiel never truly gave her. Coleman groaned, barely conscious, as Hayes knelt to stop the bleeding. "You'll live," the marshal assured him. Ezekiel stared down at Tobias's lifeless body. Justice was done, yet the void inside remained. Martha was gone. The lies couldn't be undone. "What happens now?" Ezekiel asked softly. Hayes looked at him with understanding. "Now, you decide who you want to be. That's all any of us can do." Ezekiel stepped out of the office into the sunlight. Martha was still gone. Coleman was still a coward. But for the first time in months, Ezekiel was free. The truth hadn't healed him, but had set him loose. And freedom, he realized, felt a lot like falling.